Hello, I'm Hazel Butterworth, and this is Carmen Braga, and we're the co-founders of Healing Heart Center. We're the hosts of the Inspiration Station for Self-Awareness.
And you are watching TVU, and you can find us on the Health and Wellness channel. We're streaming live and on demand.
Hello, welcome to the Inspiration Station for Self-Awareness. Today's episode is called, What's Your Illness Trying to Tell You? What is it trying to tell you? I'm Hazel Butterworth. This is Carmen Braga, and today we're going to give you some insights on how you can dig into that question of what is your illness trying to tell you? Yeah.
Well, and I mean, a lot of times when we get diagnosed with an illness, for example, first we tend to go into shock, I think, in a lot of cases, especially when it's the C word, right? Yeah. Cancer.
Nobody wants to hear that word.
No. And I mean, both Hazel and I have heard that word, and we've gone through that ourselves. But it's one of those things that we kind of take at face value. And a lot of people may not know that there's a lot that you can be doing for yourself on a different level than just the outside physical level. And that's something that I did 4 years ago. My husband was diagnosed with tongue cancer. And like I said, the first thing you do is you go into that fear, right? As soon as you hear that word, you go into shock almost. But once we found that out, because of what I do, I always know that what's happening on the outside is a direct reflection of what's happening on the inside of us. So to me, the outside, the body it's kind of like the outside, where it's always giving you clues as to what's happening with you emotionally on the inside. So one of the things that I did is I used a book that's called Secret Language of the Body, and we'll be referencing that, showing it to you afterwards. And it's an excellent book in showing you what's happening from an inner level, so that you can actually, not only, you're working with both parts. You're working with the physical, with the doctors and the care and things like that. But you also can work underneath that layer and work on what's going on inside of you. So I'm going to give you just a few examples of what we found when we went into this with my husband with the tongue cancer, okay? So at that time, he was working a job where he was the foreman in the oil field. And there's a lot of stress, a lot of pressure, a lot of higher ups in there. And there was just a lot going on, right? And so a few of the things, this is from that book that I was telling you about, that came up when we looked at tongue and cancer for him, okay? So one of the things was not saying things he wanted to say out of fear of being judged or criticized. Another was feeling suppressed. Another one was difficulty speaking and standing up for himself. Feeling limited was another. And on guard, never able to relax and let go. And pushing himself too much. And also trying to please others and seeking approval. Now, the other thing that he would say quite a bit was that he always had to hold his tongue. And the other one was that whatever was happening was leaving a bad taste in his mouth. These are all things that our words and our thoughts do manifest into the physical. And it's really important to pay attention to what we're thinking, what we're saying to ourselves, and that daily mantra that can be going on inside of the head, right? Like for him, always having to bite my tongue, and he said that over and over and over again. Well, and then he ended up with tongue cancer, right? So it's about addressing these things from the inside out as well as from the outside in. And it's working in conjunction with your body, with the physical, the mental, the emotional, and the spiritual side as well, right? So it's all of these factors, which is what we spoke about last week,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And you know, and when I look at these things, because to me, we are all one. And when I looked at this list of things that came up for him, I also knew that there was some things in there for me to work on as well. And that is something that just out of this list that came up for me personally was not saying things that I wanted to say out of fear of being judged or criticized. Difficulty speaking and standing up for myself was another one, and trying to please others and seeking approval. So these were parts of each of us that we both knew that we had to work on from the inside out. And when we approached it from that angle, everything, you know, I mean, it worked out as best as it could, in conjunction with working with the doctors and things like that. And it made things a lot easier for him and for me. And I got to learn a lot about myself. I mean, I would say the two things that I learned the most of during that time was fear and patience. Those were the two biggest things, that came up for me. So that's what we went through, and it's just so important to look at what's happening on the inside of us, because we can be helping ourselves in ways that we're maybe not aware of, right? So that's just a little tidbit for you.
Hello, I'm Hazel Butterworth, and this is Carmen Braga. We're the co-founders of Healing Heart Center here in Sherwood Park. And we're also the hosts of the Inspiration Station for Self-Awareness.
You're watching TVU, and this is the Health and Wellness Channel.
Right now, there are more and more people are hearing the C word. And not just the C word, but are also being faced with many other illnesses. And right now, you know, the COVID is around, and that too is having an impact on those who are being severely affected. Any illness will impact your everyday life, whether it's you or whether it's a family member. Your whole life can change in one day. And as Carmen said before, like, we have both had experiences of cancer, being around cancer. Me and my husband were 2 for 2. So his experience was 2006. And mine was a lot later. Mine was only in 2016. And some people say, but Hazel, you do all this work. That doesn't make you necessarily immune. It, no. I too have stored emotions, yes, and it's part of that process. And sometimes it's just something that we need to experience as well. Like for me, I had an amazing experience because I did so much. When I first was diagnosed, I didn't go into the fear and panic. I'd already been through it with my husband. I'd already supported Carmen through her and her husband. And so when it came to me, it's like, no, I can do this on my own. And I went on my own. When I got the diagnosis, it was time for me then to sit with myself and look at, what have I contributed? What is that showing me? Where is that cancer showing up? Because that is a clue. Every illness is a clue at what to look at within your life. And as Carmen mentioned, what's happening on the outside is a reflection on the inside. Last week, we talked about the emotional and the mental and the spiritual aspects, that invisible part of you. And every time you have a thought, every time you have an experience, there is an imprint. And that imprint, it's like a photograph in your energy field. And they all just keep collecting this experience, this experience. This one might be positive, this one might be negative. There's no ifs, ands, and buts there. It just is what it is. So they all accumulate. And eventually, it's like the gravity when you get an asteroid in the Earth's atmosphere. It either is going to dissolve or it's going to land on Earth. And that same sort of concept, all these imprints in your energy field will eventually make their way into your physical body. Where they land is a clue at what to look at within your life. And we're going to be referencing Ina Segal in the last portion of this segment. But one of the things for me was the emotion that came up for me was rejection. And that's what was stored in my body. With my husband, his brother was killed and he had difficulty processing. It was his youngest brother. So there's all sorts attached to that. Guilt being the eldest. It was sudden. There's so many things attached to it. And he struggled to process that. And he kept that in. And his cancer showed up in the colon. And what does the colon do? It eliminates. It helps process out. So those stored emotions that he had in that trauma couldn't go anywhere. They were trapped. And that's where they landed, if you like. For me, mine was in my uterus. But by the time my surgery came, because I decided to have surgery, and that's a choice you have to make. What process, what progress, what steps you're going to take, that's all part of your decision. It's your body. And I was very blessed to have a girl who had worked in ICU, and she goes, Hazel, it's okay to say that I need time to think. I need time to process. And that was my response when the oncologist said to me, here's the plan, this is what the diagnosis is, and in 3 weeks you're having surgery. And I just went, whoa, I need time to process. And they asked how long. I don't know. I needed to sit with it and make a decision that I felt was right for me. That was a huge one.
And some people do have to go in immediately.
Yeah, depending on the circumstances.
Depends on what's going on, right?
Absolutely. So, my husband was like, he had a pain in his side one day, they kept him in overnight and they operated the next day. He didn't even have a chance to think about it.
Which is actually kind of a good thing.
That's what we said, because everything was contained. And one day they went snip, snip, and everything was gone. And that was it. It was all clear. And the nurses didn't know what to do. And they said, well, do you want to see a counselor? It's like, well, no, we got the best case scenario.
Yeah.
Because it was like, we have it today and it's gone tomorrow. That doesn't happen for everybody. And, we've all witnessed friends and family members who have struggled to go through cancer diagnosis. And it's not an easy journey, but there's ways that you can help yourself. Now, for me, as I mentioned, my emotion that was trapped for me was rejection. And I look at it 3 ways, because again, the outside, the inside. So the 3 ways I look at rejection is, how have I been rejected all through my life? And that was easy, because society has rejected you. Or you went to be on a team and you didn't get on, so you got rejected. Or you applied for a job and you got rejected. All those little imprints of rejection all add up. And we don't realize, because it wasn't that important, or it might have been at the time, but we don't realize that unless we've dissolved that, then it's still with us. And so how have people rejected me? The second one was, how have I rejected other people? And it might be I disagree with their ideas, I reject their philosophy. It could be anything. So I explored that. And the third one, which was really most powerful, how I reject myself. That was a big eye-opener, because we're so busy looking outside that we don't look in. And that was a big eye-opener. So for me, I did lots of self-journey. So I had 2 months. My diagnosis was April. They wanted to operate me, but actually I had a 2-week window in my calendar. It just all fell into place. And then in that 2-week window, I said, I'm available this day for 2 weeks, and I got it on the first day. So I had my surgery, and everything was, by the time surgery came, mine was almost gone completely. So, but I embraced the surgery. My homeopath asked, am I at peace? And so I had to sit and make peace with that. And because that was a question I said to the oncologist, like, if you take it out and it's pristine, then what? You can't put it back in. And that's what she said. So I have to be at peace with losing that part of my body, that physical part. And I was. It was okay. And everything was so surreal and calm. And the whole experience was calm for me. But I did a lot of self-journey. I did a lot of meditation. I did a lot of journaling. I was just like 24/7 in my own little world, because I wanted to dissolve whatever was there. Because I didn't want a long-term experience. So both my husband and I had a good experience, if you can say having a cancer experience is a good experience. But the results came out pretty good, and both all clear.
Yeah.
So.
And one of the good experiences that does come from illnesses, I think, is gratitude.
Oh, hugely.
Because we're all of a sudden, you're forced to look at this part of yourself in a completely different way. You know, I mean, I never thought about the tongue ever.
I love my
tongue in this way. I just never did. We take these things for granted, right? And we just don't look at it like that until, you know, until something is gone or going or whatever the case may be. It's
but
like,
that's
oh
the
my
thing.
gosh.
Your illnesses are trying to get your attention because you've ignored it. And until it strikes out and says, hey, and shouts, I have a problem, we just keep, we just ignore it.
It literally is a cry for love.
Yeah.
It really is. It's our body crying out for love, for attention. Please love me. And it's not about projecting fear or hate or anger at it. It's actually about embracing it and loving it, because that's what it is doing. It's crying out for that love, for you to finally pay attention.
It's a challenge for some to like flip that mindset around. It's like, well, no, I don't want this. I don't want this. I don't like this. And to tell someone like, you know what, if you loved it, it would be a gentler experience. Now, we were talking before about sometimes people will say, well, it's in my family. I'm going to get it. It's genetic. That's not, there is a truth to that. However, it's not all the truth, because it just means there's a potential, but it's our own mindset sometimes that just presumes and assumes that we're going to have that because it's in the family. Not necessarily.
Not necessarily, because they've proven that
it's been proven
that it doesn't run in the family. And a lot of these things, a lot of these illnesses are not DNA related.
No.
But we're not made aware of that in the normal everyday
life, right?
There's
well, when are we ever taught about feel the emotion, express emotion, and it's okay and it's good, and find a really constructive way, whether it's drawing, whether it's your craft or whatever, or if it's that you know that you're getting this tension, so you need to go for a walk and physically release that tension. Do something constructively with those emotions. We're not taught that. It's always like, no, you can't cry here. No, you can't show your emotion. And so we stuff it down. And it's all that stuff that we've stuffed down for years that is accumulated and has become toxic. That's all it is. That energy has become toxic. And it shows up as illness. But it'll show up in the part of the body that will give you a clue at what to look at in your life. If it's in your legs, perhaps maybe you're not supporting yourself or going in the right. I know your back is just supporting yourself, right? But legs, sometimes, are you flexible if you've got problems with your joints? Are you flexible, or are you very rigid in your thinking?
Not wanting to move.
Wanting to move.
That's a big thing. Is that fear of change, that fear of growth and moving forward, right? That can affect you greatly.
It's huge stumbling blocks. It's huge. So we have, as a caregiver and as a person receiving that diagnosis, and Carmen as a caregiver, and that we've been in that arena, so we have our own experiences that we grew from hugely because of that. Hello, I'm Hazel Butterworth, and this is Carmen Braga, and we're the co-founders of Healing Heart Center. We're the hosts of the Inspiration Station for Self-Awareness.
And you are watching TVU, and you can find us on the Health and Wellness channel. We're streaming live and on demand. So you do an exercise with people that I love in pinpointing where things are in your body and how long you've been carrying it for.
It's something I love to do, and sometimes people are really quite amazed. So if you're willing, if you have a few moments where you can just stop what you're doing and just focus on yourself for a moment, and if you're in a safe place where perhaps you can close your eyes, if not, then watch the replay and then do this activity when you are in that place where you can do it. So here's what we're going to look at. We're going to pick an emotion. We'll pick anger. So what I'd like you to do is just close your eyes. And I'd like you to just go in your memory banks, and you can go back as far as you want to. But I'd like you to recall a time when you were angry. Not just a little bit angry, but when you were furious and you were so mad at somebody. And perhaps as a kid, it's like, I hate you, I hate you, I hate you, whatever it is, right? Take a few moments and go back and recall. All we're doing is recall a time when you were really, really angry. And as you recall that moment in time, just become aware of what you're sensing and feeling in your body. Is there a tension, a tightness? And that tension or tightness that you are feeling or experiencing, maybe it's a different experience, but where in your body is that showing up? Where in your body? Is it in your heart? Is it in your stomach? Is it in your back, your throat, your head? Okay, now that we've acknowledged that, just open your eyes for a moment. And I want you to be honest with yourself. Was it in the last 6 months? Yes or no? Was it in the last 12 months? Yes or no? Was it in the last 5 years? Was it in the last 10 years? Was it 20 years? The longest number that I had one that was over 40 years. And the conversation was, no, I dealt with that. I've dealt with that. I went to see, I've dealt with all that. But there was still some residue. You may have dealt with it, but you may not have completely dealt with it. You may not have dissolved it completely. And if you recall a moment in time that you are angry and you still get a triggered response in your physical body, then there is still some residue that is hanging around, waiting for you to spend some time and go visit and see what's hanging around there. Right?
That's
what emotion?
Like, if you think about your ex, for example, right? If you
mad.
if you're still angry about that, well, you're still triggered by it.
Yeah.
You're still holding on to that emotion. You're still holding on to that pain, and it's being stored in your body. And that's, it's a big reason, one of the main reasons why so many people are sick nowadays.
And you think you've moved on because, we separated, we divorced, and we've moved on. But if you think of somebody, and as Carmen said, if it's an ex, it's like, oh, yeah, I don't like him, then you've not made peace with that. Yeah. Right? You're moving on, but a part of you is remaining stuck. And it's what's attached to that event. We cannot change the past. I got jumped when I was 16, and it wasn't until I did all my release work. It was with me for 40 years. And I would still jump and I would hit people. Oops, that was not good. But don't surprise me from behind, because I would hit you, because that became my reflex reaction, right? Hit first, ask questions second. But after I'd done all this work and I'd released all that, then I was at peace with that. I can't change the fact that I was jumped. We're not trying to change history. No. All we're changing is, what are we stored? What's the emotion attached to that event? And once we can release that, it just frees us up so much. And that lightens the load.
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah. We're not meant to be going through life like this. Like,
dragging our heels.
Honest to God. There's so much that we can be doing for ourselves. And that's what Hazel and I are all about, is helping people on so many different levels to release these things, because we don't need to be carrying this with us.
We don't.
It's not helping.
And we know that that's what contributes to illness, any illness. We just happen to choose cancer today because I know that that's a big one for a lot of people, right? So what's important for you is to start looking for the clues, is to start spending time with yourself. Journaling was a great one for me, and actually having conversations. And that's a really good one.
It is. And
right?
I do the same thing. Your body will talk back to you.
It does. It does. Well, it always is.
Well,
it's always letting you know how it feels.
Exactly.
I'm tired. I'm happy. I'm full of energy. So it's always communicating. Just we're not listening. We're not hearing.
Yeah.
So we have a couple of resources.
Show you, this is the book that I was talking about that I used to go in and look up tongue cancer. And I mean, she has an enormous, I mean, just about everything is in this book. I mean, it's pretty amazing, actually.
It gives you a place of where to look. So when you look up, you can. I love it because I learned about this through color therapy, and there's 4 components. You can look up the body part, you can look up an emotion, you can look up an illness, and then you can look up the color. So there's different ways you can approach it. And when you get that segment, one, part, all, or some of theirs, something will resonate for you. And sometimes people might go in denial at first. No, that's not me. But when you actually are honest and truthful with yourself, there's a component in there that is speaking loudly to you and saying, hey, have a look at this in your life.
Yeah.
And it's phenomenal what you can discover from that. And,
and once you know it, because we can't actually get rid of something if we don't know that that's what's happening, right? So it's bringing that awareness to ourselves of what's actually going on underneath the layers, right? And once you're aware of what's happening, that's when we go into it and discover why that's happening to you, what you're holding on to, so that you can actually finally release and let go of these things. Because, like we said, you're not supposed to be carrying it. We don't have to carry it.
No, we don't. And that's the empowering part. It means you can take an active role in your illness. So you're no longer the victim where, okay, you have this, and then you just go with, okay, I have this, and go through the steps. The question I challenge you is, what can you do for yourself? What can you do? And there's so much that you can do, and a lot of people are not aware of that. And after Colin and I, we have this here. It's called Cancer, You Are the Cure. Okay, this ebook is available free on our website, www.healingheartcenter.ca. And there's lots of information in here that just encourages you to have a look at yourself, things that you can do, what options are available to you. There's traditional Western medicine, there's holistic, and then there's 3 more aspects. Again, we talked about the invisible, the mental, the emotional, and the spiritual. So you need to address those parts of you, right? Yes, there's the physical, yes, there's the medical, but the invisible part is you can take a role in that, and you can do a lot more than you realize to help yourself through this experience. There's some suggestions in here of things that you can do. I know you can't see it on that thing, but download it and you'll get all these clues.
And you don't even have to opt in to do this.
No, it's just totally free. But it's like when you first, are faced with a diagnosis of any illness, and your whole world is turned upside down. Some of the things, okay, what now? What are your options? What are your choices? And you have to start making those choices and seeing what options are available, and then take it from there. But you can take an active role and make your decisions coming from a much calmer place than going into the fear and panic.
More informed.
More informed, right? Yeah.
And on a different level of information. And this was born literally out of our own experiences. And we just wanted to help people to go through it perhaps a lot smoother than I did. I went into fear right away.
Yeah.
but I worked, I did learn a lot.
You did, you ebbed and flowed and you sailed through it.
And oh my gosh, it actually ended up changing so much of my life and how I teach and everything too. So it was one way, they are kind of blessings in disguise.
They are, because you learn so much about yourself. But you evolve from that, right? And even through my husband's and through mine, when my husband was first diagnosed, and the comments back was, how can you be so calm? Your husband just got diagnosed. I said, well, yeah, but in our scenario, next day is having surgery, snip, snip, tight back together. It's not to make light of it, but it wasn't as detailed or as involved as, yours was 2 years, right? And still, follow-ups after that.
It was a long involved.
You had a very long involved journey, right? And I was blessed twice. And yes, we had the big C word, but both occasions, they were pretty straightforward.
Yeah. And we did everything that we possibly could.
Yeah.
Like I said, working in conjunction with the medical system, because it's there for a reason. I mean,
medical system has its brilliance.
It
Absolutely
does.
brilliant,
Absolutely.
phenomenal.
Yeah.
But there's a component that we kind of have not really focused on, and that's what can you do for yourself, right? If you can be at peace and I actually said I embraced my surgery, and I had one doctor thought I was nuts. What do you mean you embraced it? Like, who would embrace a surgery? And I said, well, no, because I'd rather go with flow and work with it than resist. Because if I resist, my body's resisting. And if my body is resisting, it will resist everything that's happening to it. And I wanted it to have a nice, pleasant. I wanted it to be the best experience possible, in the sense that the least resistance and the least problems or things that would crop up afterwards. Oh, this is okay, but I wanted to avoid the buts. Mine was just very smooth sailing.
Well, we talked about it last week too. Is your mindset going into these things is huge.
Yeah.
It's really big. So that's why we put this together, because we just really wanted to help people to see themselves differently. So
if you're facing any illness, there's resources. You can go to our website and download our ebook. You can, the Inner Seagull book is available, which is a tremendous resource. Just be willing to look at your illness. Where is it in your body? What is the experience? And then find the emotion that's contributed. There's one main, there could be several, but there's usually one main emotion that will jump out. And for me, mine was rejection. So I had to look at it and explore rejection. And your illnesses are bringing awareness to you of the clues, where to look, what to look for. And it's give you clues of, what we need to tweak in our lives. So
I'm looking at what you're storing.
What are you storing?
And, if you're needing help, if you're wanting help, please reach out, because Hazel and I are here to help you with these kinds of things as well. We can guide you through that. Because we've done it, and we do it all the time with clients. So it's something that if you're needing that help, please reach out, because we can help. So,
all right. Thank you for being with us today.
Yes, thank you.
And until next time, be kind to yourself.
Take care. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.